to Marvel Good Yay, the spin-off of the Geek Easy Podcast, where we specifically focus on all of the films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. My name is Pixel Dan.
Jonathan Leonard.
And Sharon McCaffrey.
Hey, we're back at it.
Hey, we're back at it.
We're back. We're a little late with this one, but we have some Spider-Man to talk about.
This was fun. I haven't just randomly screamed my own name in a while.
Yeah. Well, it's good to be back. It's
good to be back.
We've all seen this movie. We all actually saw it together, and meant to do this a lot sooner, but life finds a way to wreck that a lot of times. So it's been a month already since this movie came out, which is, I realized that today. It's like, oh my God, it's August 4th right now. Didn't this come out like 4th of July weekend?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I still think these episodes are a little better with a little bit of time to let things stew anyway.
Well, considering the show started with us going back and watching movies that were 10 years old,
exactly.
Yeah, it works out fine.
Like the box office numbers I'm about to read kind of mean something 30 days in. Right. It wouldn't have meant anything that weekend.
That's true.
So.
That's true.
So we would have known what kind of opening weekend it had.
We would have known that, but
that matters.
It matters a little bit. We wouldn't have known it was going to be in the $1 billion club. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Well, hopefully you guys have all seen this by now, and hopefully you guys still care to hear our opinion on it, because we're about to give it. We're about to talk about it. So obviously, full disclosure, this is a spoiler podcast. If you haven't caught any of the past episodes, we get full on with the details. So if you have not seen this yet, don't listen to this podcast until you've watched that movie. And then we always start things off with John to tell us the numbers. So how did this movie do on its opening weekend? Or in the first 30 days,
I guess? It's still going, so we don't have final totals yet, but we've got 30 days in. You're pretty close here. We've got a $160 million production budget on this bad boy. We've got a $360 million domestic gross, $715 million on the foreign gross, for a grand total of $1.075 million or $1 billion, excuse me.
Oof.
So the $1 billion club, the first Spider-Man movie to get there, number one Spider-Man movie of all time already. Beat out Spider-Man 3 finally, which was sitting up at the top for a really long time.
How hilarious is that?
And continues the Marvel success line.
That's great. That's great. Well, and this has the honor of being like the first post-Endgame movie, and so I think it kind of had that little air of mystery surrounding it, because nobody really knew. Like Endgame was like just this beautiful wrap-up to like 10 years of storytelling in the Marvel movies.
Yep.
So how do we jump to something new like so soon after that?
Yeah.
Because this was months after Endgame.
Right.
And it was so close. So I think it's cool to see that regardless, it still made that much money. It was still that big. So many people were still going to see it. And as we're about to discuss, I think there's still a lot of very exciting things and maybe some projections for the future with this movie that is pretty cool. It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the Avengers movies always seem to give a bump to whatever comes out next.
Yeah.
The movies that follow are always a little bit bigger than you would have expected them to be mathematically there. Also, it helps that this movie was amazing.
And spectacular. And web of.
And sensational. And superior? That's one, right? Super well reviewed, super intriguing. I don't put labels on things 30 days after they've come out as far as where they sit all time. But I would be hard-pressed to think that 6 months or a year from now, when I'm trying to figure out what my favorite Spider-Man movie is, this one won't be strictly in the running. Or strongly in the running. It's a better word, because it makes sense. The other word didn't. So all these things come together. And then you had all the intrigue going, like you said, of what does it mean for the Marvel Universe going forward. And I think they did a really great job on the marketing in this movie, which we can expand on as we talk about what happens in the movie. But they did a really good job of setting up some intrigue for the Marvel Universe as a whole without totally ruining this movie, because modern day trailers have a way of showing you everything that's going to happen in the movie over a 2.5 minute span, and then just filling in the blanks when you go. This one actually had some surprises. I think the marketing team did a really great job of building intrigue, getting people wanting to see it, and then when they got to the theater, showing something they weren't necessarily expecting.
Yeah.
And it's really refreshing when you can do something like that, especially in the comic book world where everything is so heavily reported on and analyzed and dissected and leaked and whatever else. So super happy with the end result altogether.
Well, Marvel's getting pretty good at that anyway, I feel like. I mean, we saw that a lot with Endgame. I mean, they didn't let anything out with Endgame, you know what I mean? And I feel like there's just this... It's weird that in the same franchise that, gave us their projected list of movies for like 4 or 5 years ago, right? That you can also say like, well, they're really good at hiding what's going to happen, because I feel like we haven't known. There's a whole host of movies that I just feel like I don't know. I watch the trailer and I see all the things I want to see in the trailer, but I still don't have a good idea of what the movie is going to be. Mm-hmm. And I think they've gotten pretty good at that. Yeah. Personally,
well, and they were just
they're better than a lot of Hollywood for sure.
Definitely. I mean, but they did a great job just surrounding Endgame. Period, about like making sure there were zero spoilers for what's going on with Endgame, and with like they started showing trailers for Spider-Man before Endgame had come out,
right?
So they had to be real careful to tiptoe around. I mean, it was already a little bit of a spoiler of it looks like Spider-Man's coming back to life, obviously. But aside from that, they still did a really good job of totally dancing around what kind of impact Endgame was going to have on this movie with those trailers,
which was kind of one of those like spoiler, not a spoiler type thing, because I mean that we talked about that ad nauseum about Infinity War in the first place. Like they killed all these people and it had an emotional impact. Except also you knew 60% of them already had greenlit sequels coming out. You know?
Some of them were already filming those sequels.
Exactly.
Yeah, very cool. All right, well, where do we want to start? How do we want to get into this?
At the beginning.
Once upon a time.
Once upon a time.
There was a kid named Peter Parker. He went to high school.
Well, it's another Spider-Man movie that doesn't go through that whole thing.
Well, at this point, hopefully we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
We've seen Spider-Man enough in the MCU to not have to get flashbacks to the...
exactly. I would still be interested in seeing this universe's Uncle Ben at some point.
Yeah, they never really even talked about him.
No, not really.
Like, they've
referenced it for sure.
Yeah.
I know, like his suitcase has Ben's initials on it.
Yeah.
And they make sure to focus on it. Mm-hmm. Little things like that, like he's out there, or was out there.
Was. Come on, too soon.
Yeah. But the way they start this one off is basically by blending it into the end of Endgame, kind of giving you that epilogue that Endgame didn't give you. Of you walk away from Endgame, you're like, that was amazing, but like, man, what happened when all these people came back?
We talked about that too in our Endgame episode. We talked about the 5-year jump and how that was going to have an impact on things like Spider-Man. So I was pretty happy to see that they literally opened this movie up by going, okay, here's the answers we know you're all going to have about this.
And they didn't go super in depth. They just sort of like they referenced it enough to where they've thought about it, and then you just have to you have to take the rest of it with a grain of salt or figure it out for yourself. But like we were making jokes when we saw the trailer, we were like, well, I guess all of his friends just got blipped out.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't call it that then.
Blip. That's one of the things. They gave it a name. They called it the blip.
Yeah. We're like, I guess all of his friends got snapped away because they're all the same age now, but they make sure when they're giving you the intro and some of the new characters, they talk about like this kid who's got an important role in the movie, and they say how weird it is because he was just this, whiny little 13, or I guess he would have been like an 11-year-old or whatever when they went away, and then they come back and all of a sudden he's this super tall, kind of buff, 16-year-old that all the girls are into. And so they have a character that just sort of embodies that entire idea of, well, how does that work? Well, it works like this guy does.
Right.
And that's all you need to know. The rest of it you can just kind of put together.
Right.
I think there are still a few questions because we had, and I believe we talked about it on the show, we talked about, well, if everybody just came back where they were, which was sort of the point of Endgame, like what about the people who were in planes?
Yeah.
Or what about the people who were, just driving down the highway and stuff like that? And I still have some questions about that because they show they show when they introduce it as the blip, because the movie starts off with this montage to all the dead Avengers, all the people who sacrificed their lives.
Well, it's like this,
but it's the high school.
It's the high school news thing.
Yeah, it's Betty Brant and that other guy,
which is so funny.
Doing their thing where they're both really awkward on camera because they're high school kids.
Yeah,
and whatever else, and it was super funny. But at that point, they explain what the blip is and that they're calling it the blip and that you got blipped away and then blipped back. And they show this footage of everybody being at this like high school sporting event, and they all just start dusting away like half the room does. And then they show a different high school sporting event where I think like the band was just...
it was a band playing.
Yeah, the band was just playing in the middle of the
court,
the basketball court,
yeah.
And then all of a sudden everybody blips back and like just gets plowed into by the basketball players.
Right,
and
there's
stuff
a basketball
like that.
game going on, and half the band appears in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Which goes, okay, everybody did really just come back where they were, except for, again, what about the people who were in, what about that helicopter pilot?
Yeah, like we saw helicopters crashing at the end of Infinity War, and like stuff, like things coming down, cars crashing and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how horrible is it for them to like be brought back to life and then immediately fall to their death out of the sky? Or you know what I mean?
And how bad is it for their loved ones who lost them, and then all of a sudden we're like, maybe they're back. Oh no, they're splattered.
Oh man.
Well, so for the people blipping back, they don't know the difference, right? To them, all of a sudden,
they're just falling.
Like his helicopter just disappeared.
Yeah.
Like that's what's super weird.
That's super horrifying. Though.
Yeah, you are not making this better.
I mean, I'm not trying to make it better. I mean, still, we're still talking about like a small fraction of the 50% of the universe that disappeared. So even
people be driving all the time, man.
Yeah, people be driving all the time, but not 50% of the universe is driving. No. We don't even know if in Guardians of the Galaxy, when they're on Xandor, there are no cars on Xandor. All those people, they're cool.
All the ones that were just walking around?
Yeah, everybody on Xandor? Yeah.
We only saw a small percentage of Xandor, though. The whole rest of the world might have been highway system.
It wasn't.
So. It wasn't, yeah.
I did think it was great, too, when they reintroduced May. And she's at this event for blip survivors or whatever they call it, and she's saying when I first blipped back into my old apartment, there was a Chinese family living there, and the grandmother thought I was a ghost,
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Wow, so they have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah. Well, it's just we talked about how the impact, like that's a huge thing, right? Like jumping ahead 5 years is a big jump, and for all the half of the universe is gone, and then half of the universe all of a sudden just comes back 5 years later. Obviously, there's gonna be all kinds of weird things like that going on, right? Like it also begs the question, like how does this impact the economy and weird things like that? You know what I mean? Because half of the universe was gone, so there's half of the universe no longer spending money and stuff like that. Now all of a sudden, all those people are just back. Is there a infrastructure to handle all these people that just popped back up? I mean, it's crazy to think about weird stuff like that's very intricate, but I think about it.
These are the questions that will never be answered.
Yeah, exactly.
But they'll always be fun to just sit there and talk about.
Yeah, and we see that they're not going to be answered because, I mean, really, even the kid that we meet that was a little kid and then grew up, and so when they came back, he was old enough in the same class as them. He's still just one of them, even though he had lived through 5 years of a dystopic future. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He wasn't not that he should have been like Mad Max in high school, but
he shows up every day with a broadsword.
You guys don't even know what it was like while you were all gone.
Yeah.
I've seen things, man.
Amazing.
Spectacular.
Web of.
Here we go.
Again.
This is gonna happen every time.
Yep. All right, so. Where do we even go from there? Because we kind of get that introduction to Peter early on with they're doing that fundraiser kind of thing that you were talking about, right?
Yeah.
At the very beginning there, because he shows up as Spider-Man.
They dive right into the movie, but they hit several points along the way. I mean, honestly, if you just analyze the first 10 minutes of this movie, the mastery that was put into the storytelling to set up everything they did at a breakneck pace and still leave you satisfied with what's going on. Because, I mean, they give the montage to the dead heroes. They explain the blip. They explain people coming back 5 years later. They set up the kind of overarching story about Peter wanting to live up to Tony. And the loss of Tony for the world as a whole, because there's all these memorials to Iron Man everywhere.
Yeah, they did a lot of that in the beginning of this movie, too.
They immediately jump into all those reporters asking him, if he's leads the Avengers now and if he's the new Iron Man or whatever, and just the pressure he's on for that, and he's got to just kind of run away from that. He has that conversation with Happy, and Nick Fury starts calling, and he just totally ignores the call. And Happy's yelling at him like, you can't just ghost Nick Fury. You got to take this, because if you don't answer, he's going to call me, and I don't want to talk to him.
Yeah.
And he runs away from that, and he really is just sort of backing away from everything. And his school's having this field trip, and he just really wants to go. He disappeared too and came back. He just lost his mentor / father figure, and whatever. He's under all this pressure to be the next Tony, and all he wants to do is run away and be a teenager for like a week. And they give you all of this in, like I said, like a 5-10 minute span, and you're cool with all of it. You get it. You're caught up now. You're ready to go, and this movie is chugging along at a pace. And then
they go straight into how into MJ he is this time. Like just straight away. He's just like
his plan.
His plan is to go. Yeah, he wants to go basically put the moves on MJ on this trip.
Yep.
Yeah, and I guess that really plays into all this too. Because like you were saying, like he just came back from like disappearing for 5 years and fought this crazy epic battle and won and lost Tony, and so like he wants to get back to his normal life, and of course he wants to go hit on the girl now. You know what I mean? Like, he better do it now, because you never know what else is going to happen. There might be another Thanos-type character showing up and snapping people away. So
you could blip away at any second.
Exactly.
You
could always just blip away at any second. They also like jump straight into the whole like Aunt May's cool with him being Spider-Man now kind of stuff here, and like we get that interaction with Happy and everything. So
because remember, that's the way the first one ended, with her finding out, kind of freaking out about that.
Yeah. So they do a lot of just really good setup, and like it's a good catch up from Endgame. They kind of have a nice little package that they tie a lot of those loose ends up, and then they're like, boom, send you straight into this new Spider-Man story. I thought it was pretty cool.
Well, I did notice, I don't think I really caught it on the first viewing, but the second time through I noticed there was that great scene in the trailer, though, with the cops that didn't end up making the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know where that would have, I mean, somewhere at the beginning that would have fit in, but there's this part of the trailer where he's beating up these bad guys, and the cops come in, and they're like, what are you, the new Iron Man? And he's like, no, I'm too busy doing your job.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
I think I read something online about that and why it was cut, and that it's going to be on the obviously it'll be like one of the deleted scenes on the release, but I'm not sure why.
Well, you almost feel like they could have shot that extra, like it almost feels like something they might have shot extra, so they had something to fill in
the trailer. They
so
do
they didn't
that
have
sometimes.
To reveal the last, Yeah.
But anything
the
they were
half of the movie.
Yeah, right. Anything they were going to accomplish with that scene, they sort of accomplished with the rest of the stuff, as far as the scene where he's freaking out about the idea of filling in as Iron Man.
Yep.
Right.
But basically, at this point, we're on to the trip, and they make sure to point out that he doesn't even want to take the suit.
Yeah.
Because May keeps telling him not to forget it, and he's like, I don't want to be Spider-Man. I just want to go to Europe and be Peter for a week.
Well, he's also got both suits.
Yeah.
In his apartment, he's got So he's got multiple suits now.
Yeah.
He's got the Iron Spider suit and that weird little, in like a stasis unit or something.
Yeah. But she ultimately just packs.
Wonder what that'd be like, trying to take through
airport
security.
Hey, that's a good point. Maybe that's why she packed just the normal one. Yeah. She just threw his normal one in the suitcase because he didn't even know about it till
I want to know what the electric company thought when their bill spiked after he got that suit.
Yeah. Hey, it was made by Tony. It's probably like it charges like a cell phone.
Yeah, probably. Clean energy.
Clean energy. Yeah, exactly.
It's got an arc reactor in it. So.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, an arc reactor. That's probably it.
Well, my joke's not funny.
Yeah.
Yep.
Take that, John. Take that, John.
Where's that mute button?
Where's that mute button?
I'm retiring.
So yeah, he's on like a European vacation, basically, right? Like a field trip type of thing.
They set it up with the teacher who took him on the Scholastic Bowl in the first movie, Martin Starr.
Yeah.
Mr. Cligoris?
Yeah.
Cligoris?
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah.
And then they added in J.B. Smoove as another teacher on the trip there. I don't know. I think he was a science teacher. Yeah, he was definitely a science teacher.
Yeah, because as a man of science, witches.
So it's these two kind of buffoonish teachers and all of these kids who just came back to life going on this field trip to Europe. And the shenanigans ensue. But they get there. Peter's got his plan to woo MJ. Ned's upset with it because he wants to be bachelors in Europe with Peter for the
European
trip.
women love Americans.
Yeah. Yeah. But then he immediately became boyfriend girlfriend with what's her face on the airplane. Remember?
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Well, because they tried to get a switch so that Peter could sit with MJ.
Yeah.
And he was like, he told that girl he's got a
Perfume
allergy. And the teacher's like, perfume allergy? Oh man, we gotta. And he jumped up and rearranged everybody.
Yeah. He made Peter sit next to him.
Yep. So Peter had to sit next to him.
Because he had a perfume allergy.
Ned had to sit next to Betty, and MJ ended up sitting next to that kid who was 11 and now is tall and super buff, who was kind of immediately set up as the foil there. They're clearly both into MJ, and so Peter's got to compete with this guy now.
Yeah.
And so they get up. By the time they get off the plane, Peter's talking to Ned about everything that happened there, and then Betty comes up and I don't remember what she called Ned, honey or something like that, and Peter's like, "What's going on here? What happened to being bachelors in Europe?" He's like, "Peter, that's when I was just a kid."
Yeah. They start talking like they're like a full-on married couple now at this point. That's ridiculous.
Those were the dreams of a boy.
Yeah.
Oh, we did actually forget where the movie actually started. Because it started with Nick Fury and Maria Hill. Maria. Why do I do that every time?
Mario Hill.
Maria Hill.
It's a me, Maria.
It's a me.
They're investigating some occurrence in South America, I think. And they get there, and as they're looking around, this giant rock monster forms, and they start shooting at it, and then they turn around, and Mysterio shows up, Jake Gyllenhaal shows up, and tells them they don't want any part of this and starts fighting the thing, and then it cuts into the actual montage video that we talked about earlier. And so once we're in Europe, pretty quick into this, yes, Nick Fury comes to him first before the water thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because he was Peter was ghosting him,
No.
It was
The
after.
water thing first. Yep, it was the water
thing was first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're just going along in Italy or Venice. Yeah, somewhere with a lot of water and boats.
Right.
And as they're doing their field trip thing, and Peter's trying to find this necklace he wants to find for MJ, and then all of a sudden this giant water monster shows up. They kind of allude to the idea that it's Hydro Man.
Yeah.
But we'll get a more detailed explanation of it shortly into the movie. But basically, this thing shows up and just starts attacking people, and so Peter's trying to figure out how to hide his identity and fight it and protect people, and then Mysterio shows up there as well, flying around.
He puts on that little masquerade mask thing.
Yeah.
It's
Still wearing his same flannel and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just zipping around. But he ends up saving a bunch of people by keeping the damage down while Mysterio fights the water monster and destroys it. And then
Kinda. She tries.
what do you mean? Oh, with the building
With the damage, yeah.
He kept everybody from getting hurt.
Yeah.
And then still dropped all the buildings.
Right.
Yeah. So then that fight ensues, and then afterwards it was when we get that scene. He's on the phone with May, telling her that he's okay and all that stuff, and all the kids are sitting around watching the news of the mysterious man that came in and fought the monster, and they're all going on about how cool he is, and somebody says he's like Iron Man and Thor all rolled into one or something like that. And that's when Flash does that bit. He's like, well, he's not as cool as Spider-Man.
Yeah. I love that Flash is a Spider-Man mark in these movies. I think that's hilarious.
Well, that's how it wasn't that a thing? Wasn't Flash Thompson always a big Spider-Man fan, but hated Peter?
Yeah, but I'm not sure actually.
I
but I
think
love
so.
that. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I really like the kid playing Flash in these movies. He cracks me up every time.
Yeah.
I laugh at him every time he's on screen, and I still want him to just get his comeuppance. It's like the perfect way to play that, you know?
This is when they you kind of talked about how they kind of made a reference to Hydro Man or whatever, because this is where he does it, right? That isn't Flash is the one that brings up and actually says like Hydro Man's name, like the actual character's name, because I looked up the quote. He says something like that. There's internet conspiracy theories reporting that a sailor named Morris Bench was exposed to an experimental underwater generator and got hydro powers. That's Hydro Man.
Yeah.
Right.
So, like, that's apparently he's out there somewhere. The actual Hydro Man is out there somewhere, but this is not Hydro Man.
Yeah.
And this is another one of those things where the trailers sort of made it look like Hydro Man was here and possibly Sandman was here and Molten Man.
Yep.
And
it's kind of one of those fun ways. Like, there's a good chance we'll never see these characters in this universe. And so now we have these things that look visually close to them, and it's kind of neat that we got them all in. At the same time, the way the story goes, if they ever didn't really need, if they make 100 of these movies and they get to Molten Man, they can still use them if they want.
Right, exactly.
Or in 2 years if they decide to.
Right,
Yeah.
You never know. You never know.
I mean, it was, how long was it in Winter Soldier where the dude was listing off, Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anybody who could be and we all went, oh, that's awesome, since we'll never get a Doctor Strange movie.
Yep. You're right. You're totally right. It's totally that kind of thing. You can't count Marvel out when it comes to stuff like that.
Right.
And as soon as you hear about a movie and go, oh, that'll be fine. It'll be amazing.
A Molten Man movie, what? And then we're all going to love it. Yeah.
Then all of a sudden it makes $3 billion. Right. It's the best thing ever. So after that fight, we go back to the kids on the high school trip, and the teacher's trying to make sure everybody's okay and all that stuff. And Peter and Ned are walking back into their room, and Ned's explaining, how cool the scenario was because he was in the middle of it and whatever. And then all of a sudden he takes that dart to the neck, and that's where Nick Fury comes in. And that was another scene right out of the trailer. That was from the trailer.
Yeah, we all knew that was happening in the
Which
trailer.
it turned out a lot funnier when you saw the full thing, though.
Yeah,
because he starts talking to Peter. And the teacher just shows up and is like, "Is everybody okay?" And Ned just looks like he's sleeping, and he's like, "Do you?" Because it's the Martin Starr. I can't remember the actual teacher's name, but the Martin Starr character is like, "Is everybody okay? Do you need like some counseling? Do you need to talk about this?" And Peter's like, "No, I think we're fine." And he's like, "Great, because I am not qualified to do that."
Do you need some counseling?
Yeah.
But then Betty comes in looking for Ned, and she tells him he's asleep. And Nick Fury's like, the next person who knocks on that door, I'm shooting him. So, but they get out of there. He takes Peter back to whatever outpost they've got set up. Maria Hill's there, also Mario Hill. They're all there. And he introduces them to Quentin Beck.
Yep.
Peter calls him Mysterio, and he's like, what? He's like, it's just the name people were calling you. Don't worry about it, But he goes on, and Fury sets up the rest of the story now. Mysterio's from an alternate universe. Somehow a doorway has been opened, and there's a bunch of different Earths. They even dropped the Earth 616 line.
They did.
Which I think is a little interesting, because I always figured if they're playing the multiverse aspect of things, and the comic universe is 616, then the movie universe would be a different one.
Yeah, right? Doesn't it feel like that wouldn't be 616?
Now, however, we're not really 616 here.
Right.
So, as we're moving along on this, they get... Mysterio comes off very endearing, automatically gets along with Peter. Doesn't dive directly into a mentor role exactly, but he's this seasoned veteran superhero that sees a ton of potential in Peter. Yep. And is willing to work with him and take his side, because Fury's given Peter a really hard time about some stuff, and Quentin just jumps right in and is like, well, maybe he doesn't trust you because you just kidnapped him, or whatever, that kind of thing. Actually, I think that might be a later scene. Regardless, this is the kind of relationship that automatically builds. I'm not saying Jake Gyllenhaal shows up and immediately is Tony Stark, but they clearly build him as this surrogate. The whole movie, the first half of the movie, is set up as basically saying that Mysterio could be this stand-in.
Right.
From the very beginning, who's going to be the new Iron Man is the question. As soon as the world meets Mysterio, the kids are already like, oh, he's kind of like Iron Man. He meets Peter, and he's automatically treating Peter like he's this elder that can guide him. They really do so much with so little time, and I keep focusing on that because, that's just amazing writing, I think. It is mind-boggling how much they can accomplish with so little there, and you don't even have to question it. You're not analyzing it as you're first watching it. You're just there. Because a lot of this stuff I didn't even catch till the second time on the level where I could really talk about it, but still going through it, I'm like, man, they set me up for everything.
Yep.
And I didn't even know they were doing it.
Right.
It was just there. But what they set up is the fact that these monsters are called elementals, and there's 4 of them, the wind and water and fire and earth. And Mysterio's from an alternate universe that has been destroyed. His Earth is gone.
Yeah.
And he was part of this, fighting force that was fighting against these things, and he's the only one who survived. And they don't really explain how he got here, but he got here somehow and doesn't want this Earth to die too. And so he's here to save it from these things. And so Fury tells Peter, the next one's going to be in Prague. We need you in Prague. And Peter's like, I can't. I'm on this field trip. I'm just going to go back. I can't help you, whatever. And they're like, all right. They're sort of done with it. Also, I think before we got to the Mysterio part is when Fury gave Peter those glasses, though.
Yep.
That's right.
Edith.
Edith.
The Edith glasses. So basically it was this last gift that Tony had left, and he left it for Peter. And it just looks like a pair of really wonky Tony sunglasses. And he gives him a note, for the next Iron Man, signed Tony, something like that. And Peter, when he finally puts them on, there's this basically a supercomputer. Like he's in control of all this Stark tech now through these glasses. And so he's gotten this gift. He's met Mysterio. He's still totally backed away from the responsibility. He just wants to be on his field trip, and he leaves. So when he gets back to the hotel, everybody's packing up. They're leaving because the teacher had been on the phone with the travel agency and was upset because they'd been their accommodations weren't up to snuff, and they'd been attacked by a water monster. And magically, the travel agency upgraded them to this trip to Prague.
Yeah.
So immediately the teacher runs by and he's like, "Hey, we got upgraded. We're going to Prague." And Peter's like,
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we shift over to that.
Yeah.
So should we talk about Edith here?
Well, when does he find out about
on the bus ride?
On the bus, yeah, which is between here. So it's about right now anyway.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
All right. So he activates Edith with these glasses, which first of all I want to point out. So Edith is totally Ultron, right? Like Tony's like she reads everybody's emails, and there's like a satellite in space that deploys weaponized drones.
Yeah.
Okay, like
pretty
this
much, because as soon as he puts those things on, he's just looking around the bus.
Right,
and all these kids are on the phones, and their text messages are popping up in his field of view. He can see what they're typing as they're typing it and stuff like that. So it's totally spy tech. Yeah.
And so this is the suit. First of all, like, I mean, that's a pretty big violation of privacy that Stark was just. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. It makes me think. Like this is the suit of armor around the world that he wanted to build that everybody told him was a bad idea. That Captain America was always super against.
Yeah.
And
well, I had the same thought too, because the joke of this scene is, or the crux of it is that as they're traveling towards Prague, they take a pit stop for a restroom break. Peter gets called over into this room on the side, and there's a couple of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in there. And this girl gives him a new suit and tells him to put it on. And because he had told Fury he couldn't be seen in a Spider-Man suit, everybody would put 2 and 2 together and he'd be outed. Yeah. So they give him this brand new suit that isn't a Spider-Man suit. And this lady's yelling at him to put it on. So he starts to change. And the kid that used to be 11 walks in and takes a picture of him real quick with his pants down with this girl. And tells him, like, hey, I know you like MJ, but I like her too, and I gotta let her know this is going on, And so he's all freaking out about him, MJ getting the wrong idea.
Right.
And so when he gets those glasses on, he wants to use them to erase that picture from the guy's phone. But immediately the glasses are like, hey, is this guy a target? He's like, yeah, he's a target. And they're like, okay, we'll just dispatch the kill drones then. I'm like, that's the first, like,
Yeah.
that's how Tony programmed the first step of this?
Right.
You know? Like, that's not the end, that's the beginning?
Yeah.
And so that's what basically this drone comes down and starts following the bus and trying to blow up the bus. And Peter ends up distracting everybody, doing this cool little like jump through the moon roof or sunroof of the bus and webbing the thing and destroying it before anybody sees it. But that is the one part that left me feeling really weird. I'm like, man, I get that Tony was into some weapon building, but I don't know why he gave a 16-year-old a murder bot.
Yeah.
Access to an army of them.
An army of murder bots.
Yeah. That get activated by accident very easily.
Yeah.
You know? They also go through the acronym, I think, in that scene. Because Edith stands for Even Dead, I'm the Hero.
Yeah. Even Dead, I'm the Hero. So was it about this part, or were we getting close to the part where he had the sit down with Mysterio? They fought the other creature first, right?
It's before the fight.
It's before the fight because he has the sit down with
Mysterio. And this is where he does the line, I think, because he goes back to whatever base they've set up in Prague now. He gets the call from Fury to be wherever he needs to be, so he's got to duck out on his class again. He almost gets some one-on-one time with MJ at this
the opera.
Yeah.
You know, but he's got to leave instead, so he's got to make some fake excuse and run away.
Because they're going to the opera instead of the Carnival of Lights or whatever.
Yeah.
There's this giant party going on, this festival in Prague, and all the kids are super excited, and the teacher's like, no, they upgraded us to these opera tickets. It's going to be the best 4 hours of our lives.
Yes.
And they're the only ones in the opera when they get there. There's like them and like 7 old people.
Yep.
Peter runs away and goes to this meeting spot and is talking to Fury, and Mysterio's there, and that's where, you know, Fury says something like, you know, oh, you don't trust me or whatever, and Mysterio's like, well, maybe he doesn't trust you because you just kidnapped his entire class,
right.
You know. But they get to the point where the plan is in effect. They're on the lookout for this thing, and that's when Peter's kind of on this rooftop, and Mysterio comes to see him, and they have this nice sit-down powwow. I don't really remember what they talked about. Do you?
What did they talk about? That's where he comes in, and I think that's where Peter starts telling him, like, you know, everybody's looking at me to be the next
Iron
Man, and you know, maybe where he starts seeing, you know, like he just confides in him, and they just have kind of a heart to heart, and isn't this where does Mysterio do the old where would you want to be right now?
Yeah, I think so, because he's like, I want to be with my friends, you know,
right.
I want to be with the girl,
and
everything. And I believe Mysterio's point was kind of like, you know, look, you've got all these powers, you've got to choose what you're going to do with them. You don't have to be anything, but if you're going to be something, then, you know, you can't always have both sides of it. But he's very understanding. He's very empathic about the whole thing. He doesn't, not once does he sound like he's scolding or talking down. He's a big brother or father figure or whatever you want to call it. He's just boom immediately into that role. But then they get to the point where the big monster does show up shortly thereafter. Not only that, Ned and Betty have also ran away from the opera and are stuck on this Ferris wheel when the basically the Molten Man
and MJ.
Yeah.
So MJ went after Peter. And
but they never see her. She doesn't get in danger. He doesn't have to save her.
Right.
Ned
But they followed her out.
Yeah, they followed out because MJ followed Peter and they followed her, and Ned tried to stop it because he knew what was going on. Because even when they announced the opera thing, Ned's sitting there going, well, I think this sounds culturally significant. This is going to be great. I'm really excited about this. Doing the guy in the chair routine. You know?
Yeah.
And so they start fighting this fire monster, and Ned and Betty almost get killed. Mysterio shows up. There's this big battle going on. Basically, the idea is you got to keep him away from metal because the hotter he gets, the better the chance that he's going to end up, you know, pulling heat from the Earth's core. You know, comic book science.
Comic book science.
And destroying the whole world.
All of that totally plays just fine into what this turns out to be.
Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's all made up mumbo jumbo that doesn't matter because it actually doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just stuff that he's saying.
Yep.
So
And there's a moment in there where Peter goes to web something, and his web just sort of, like he goes to web and yank something, and his web seems to sort of hit thin air, and it confuses him, but he's too much into this fight, so he just goes into the fight, and we see the thing fly away. We don't really see what it is, but it lands near MJ, who's kind of waiting in the wings, watching this stuff happen. This is also, he's in this all-black suit. The only thing that really looks very Spider-Man-y are the webs, and the eyes look just like Spider-Man's, but... Betty's like, hey, that guy kind of looks like Spider-Man. And Ned's like, oh, no, that's a European thing. I saw him on the news earlier. She's like, oh, what's his name? And he's like, Night Monkey.
Night Monkey, yeah. Night Monkey.
And they start screaming at Night Monkey for help.
Yeah.
Night Monkey, help.
Oh, man, we totally glossed over this earlier, but this seems like a fun point to bring up, that they kept referring to the spider sense as the Peter tingle.
Don't call it that.
Yeah, the Peter, because it comes up multiple times.
Peter
the
tingle.
Movie.
Yeah.
So like, I love that, because like the Night Monkey thing sticks, and then the Peter tingle thing's going on. It's so ridiculous, dude. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
So the thing ends up getting destroyed. The big battle is won. Ned and everybody else are safe.
Yeah.
And then we sort of wind up in this bar.
Yeah.
It's Mysterio and Peter sitting there.
Well, Mysterio makes the sacrifice play.
Yeah,
but survives.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep. He decides, you're not going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do what I should have done the first time.
Yeah. Yep.
And
it flies into the middle of him.
Yep.
And then the monster explodes in a ball of green flame.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom, Mysterio's there, and he's knocked out. He's wiped clean.
Yep.
He's out of energy, but he's still alive.
Yep.
Peter gets him, and they get up, and they end up at this bar, and they're just sitting there talking. And
I love this, too, because they're sitting in a bar talking, both unmasked. Just hanging out at a bar with people around them, having drinks with their masks off and their superhero suits.
well, Mysterio's mask didn't matter.
Mysterio's mask didn't matter.
And I don't think they have phones in Prague.
Oh, okay.
So they should have been safe.
Well, and I mean, Peter Parker can be the Night Monkey. He just can't,
The Night Monkey, some American kid.
I just imagine his classmates. You were Night Monkey the whole time?
Yeah.
But they have this big, long discussion again. And again, it's a beautifully crafted scene, I think. It really makes you want to like Mysterio a ton. And the crux of it is that, Peter doesn't want this responsibility. He's sticking with those guns. He just wants to be a kid for a little while. And he can't, he wanted all this, but he can't handle all of it so quick. And he comes to this revelation that when Tony left the note that said for the next Iron Man, and Peter says, that's not me. He didn't trust me to be the next Iron Man. He trusted me to find the next Iron Man.
Right.
And you're the guy you've got the experience, you've got the willingness, you'll make the sacrifice play. It's you're the next Iron Man, and Mysterio automatically is kind of brushing him off like, no, that's not what it is. They do the bit where they try on the glasses even, because Peter puts them on, and Mysterio's like, gotta be honest, they look a little ridiculous on you.
Yeah.
And then Mysterio puts them on and kind of looks like Tony.
Right.
Yeah.
So Peter decides that he's going to give them to Mysterio and will not take no for an answer, and switches control over him. Is excited, gets to go back to his field trip. The world's been saved. Now he can go spend time with a girl in Europe because there's nothing to stop him from doing this, and leaves very happy. And then we get the reveal.
Yeah.
Because slowly but surely, the whole scenery just starts to disappear and evaporate, and half the people start to disappear, and a few of them still remain, and the whole thing kind of goes away. And as it goes away, they shift over to Mysterio just sitting there, and he kind of pulls the glasses off, and he's like, see, that wasn't so hard, and then starts screaming at somebody to get that suit off of him.
Yeah, get that stupid cape off me.
Yeah.
And then he jumps up, and the whole conglomeration of people gather around, and he gives the speech.
The toast they're calling for.
Yeah, the toast. And the whole time it was this plan, and I I loved this part, because this is the part where as he starts unraveling the plan, he starts explaining how they did everything, and while he's doing that, he's making little callbacks to everything that Tony had
Yeah.
You know, and particular
because when he stands up and he says, to Tony Stark, our former boss,
right.
and then just starts knocking him down about how terrible Tony was, and then he starts going through these sort of flashbacks to some of the other movies and stuff.
Right.
It's just it's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I love how they always find a way to tie these things all together in the same universe, and like this is just like in the first Spider-Man too, where Vulture's whole thing like had some sort of connection to the Stark stuff and the Avengers stuff and all that.
Yeah.
But it's amazing because they make references to like they specifically make reference to the technology that's being used by Mysterio as the same technology that Tony demonstrated in that scene in Civil War where he was on stage and showing him younger self with his parents.
Because Quentin Beck created that.
Right.
That was his bet. Like this was his life's work, and then Tony took his life's work, renamed it Barf, and then fired him.
Yep.
And the one guy's the guy that Obadiah Stane yelled at.
For not being able to
Man.
make the arc reactor smaller. Yep.
Tony Stark did this in a cave
Yeah.
with lots of scraps.
It's amazing. I love it.
It's like Obadiah Stane just walked into the room.
Yeah, that was him. No, I love it. I love how we're still tying all that stuff back, and it's amazing how many enemies Tony created.
Yeah,
and it just keeps happening.
Both of the major Spider-Man villains in their movies were people whose origin story were that they hated Tony Stark.
I know. Yeah.
Well, the Vulture just hated all the millionaires.
Well, fair enough.
And they were just mad, and he was mad because they got gypped out of all those cleanup contracts by the state. But
because of Tony.
Because of Tony. But, I mean, Stark didn't do the cleanup. Stark Industries didn't do the cleanup.
It was directly referenced as, because they did that thing where it's like, well, you've lost all these contracts. Well, who's got them now? And it was like a Stark Industry.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I guess I'm remembering that wrong.
Yeah.
Still.
So
yeah,
but so now the villain plot has been revealed. It is all just illusion tech that he's using, and they have all these former Stark employees that have been gypped by the system there that have all come together for this plan. And the plan is basically for him to take over as the world's greatest superhero because nobody listens to geniuses, nobody listens to people who can build all these inventions. People only listen to guys with capes that can fly.
Right.
And so if that's what's going to happen, then everybody, I'll be the biggest one there is, and then everybody will listen to us through me being this world's greatest hero.
So it's like, okay, we all knew this was coming. Mm-hmm. Everybody blatantly knew that Mysterio was for sure going to be the bad guy. He is the illusionist villain anyway.
I'll take my obligatory moment to bring up my kid.
Yeah.
Real quick, because when I watched this with my kids, and my daughter leans over and is like, "Is he the bad guy the whole time?" I was like, "Yeah, he sure was," and I knew it. And she's like, "Have you seen this before?" Because usually I have. And this time I had, and I said, "Nope, I just read a lot of these comics."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I didn't know how it was going to work. I just knew it was going to happen.
But also, he totally is straight up pulling a syndrome, which is one of the things that we had talked about and seeing the trailers. But the way they made it all work and the way they tied it all together with everything, I loved it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was totally fine with it just being a syndrome kind of storyline because it works with everything that they're doing. I thought it was awesome.
Yeah, worked perfect.
And Jake Gyllenhaal is just phenomenal.
So good.
I mean, we all know Jake Gyllenhaal's a good actor. That's not like, ooh, hot take, Jake Gyllenhaal's great. But like
news or film at 11.
Yeah, right. No, but man, he's fantastic, and he does so well. The flip flop because he is very endearing. You know what I mean? Like when he's being endearing to Peter, like. You're like, this guy's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't.
I knew he was going to turn bad, and I was still like, I love this guy.
Yep. It's not like he's ever like snickering at the camera. You don't see anything like that. He's just, and then as soon as he flip flops, he's just, and it feels like the same. Like as soon as he flip flops, you're not like, oh, this is a totally different character. He still feels like the same guy.
Yeah.
It's great.
But I do love. He gets a little more like devious. Oh, I mean, going through.
Well, but he keeps the endearing part. Like the more devious he gets, the more he doesn't question it for a second. He doesn't pause for a second
Right.
and think, should I not do this? He takes it for granted that he has to do every next evil step. He just is like, well, I wish I didn't. You know,
Yeah.
he seemed like a nice kid. I don't want to kill him, but I'm definitely going to kill him.
Yeah.
Right. But he even kind of starts like treating the other people like a little harsher,
Yep. Yeah.
you know, and stuff like that. And then doesn't he like accidentally kill somebody or accidentally do something and he's totally not what happened there?
I don't know. Are you
Not sure.
thinking of the vulture?
No, I do know that happened because he super didn't care about accidentally disintegrating the shocker. And that's amazing.
The video, I thought it was set to stun.
Yeah. Yeah, well. That was just like Shocker's
Yeah.
dead.
I thought this was the anti-gravity gun. No, that's over there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Shocker 1 is dead. Just
Thought
like
this was the anti-gravity gun.
But yeah, man, I want to. I really love how well the MCU has handled the everyman Spider-Man villains. Like, just, you know, because, and we'll obviously get into more Mysterio as we're going on, but just like seeing Mysterio and seeing Vulture, and like these are just like normal guy supervillains, always have been, who don't really have superpowers. They rely on technology and tricks and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's so awesome to see Marvel pull these villains off so effectively in the movies.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that is so great. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And they're just completely woven into the universe perfectly.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And it's like, I never would have gotten where they ended up with that stuff, but man, is it fantastic.
Right,
You know?
exactly. Yeah.
Well, and it's cool that this one is like a conglomerate of people pulling off Mysterio.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Vulture was the Vulture and had his goons. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like these guys, like Jake Gyllenhaal would like Vulture could have still been Vulture without all his guys. Like Mysterio could not be Mysterio without his crew.
Exactly.
You know?
Which makes
and like
so
his
much
crew,
sense for the character of
Yes,
Mysterio.
yeah,
you know?
and it's perfect. And like the crew doesn't even run in. It's not like the crew runs in and Spider-Man has fistfights with all of them. They're just all supporting,
Yeah.
you know, him.
Yeah.
I think
They're the
that's super
special
cool.
effects guys.
right?
You know?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
all just sitting there in the background putting this stuff together.
Yep.
I think what you're thinking of is there was that scene, the guy from the first Iron Man movie is like running this simulation for him with the drones, and that's when they find out that one of them's missing. Because there's like a little glitch
That's
in
right,
the thing.
that's
Because,
right.
because even the
What's
suit,
going on
even
with
the
my
suit
hand?
at one point is like a hologram,
Yep.
you know, and it's
Yeah.
not working right. He's like, one of the drones lost a camera, and they're like, where did he lose a camera? Well, how is this happening? You know, what if somebody finds his tech and starts kind of freaking out? And he takes all the murder drones that he's in control of now and points a bunch of them at that guy.
Yeah,
and he's like,
that's
it'd be
right.
a shame if you screwed up like this again.
Yeah.
And you know, we had to do something about it. And just totally overtly threatening him.
Right. Yes,
And you're
that's
right,
what I'm
you're
thinking.
definitely getting more crazy and diabolical along ways.
Well,
it
you
goes.
you assume the power balance is shifted at that point too,
Yeah.
because he's the only one with access to Edith.
Yes.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? So like
Yeah.
before, I'm sure he was
Yeah.
the leader, but everybody kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they probably felt more like equals up until the point where he was like, well, now like that felt like that moment where he was like, I guess look who's in charge now, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and the point where like once he actually is on the news,
Yeah.
you know, now he is the plan at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, it's like
they-
lead singer of a band, right?
Yeah. You know. Like they
Like
can
all of a sudden he
yeah.
realized he was Axl Rose, and
Yeah.
then
Like
everybody else
if one of,
realized
if
he was
one of
Axl
those other
Rose.
40 people disappears or gets shot in the face by a bunch of murder bots or whatever else, somebody else can fill in or they
Right.
can find a new guy or whatever. If something happens to him, all of their plans are gone.
Yep.
So it would be really hard for anyone to stand up to him.
Right.
You know. So
This is about the part where we're having like the conversation with Spider-Man and MJ, right? Because
Yeah.
Spider-Man starts to piece this all together at this point.
because I really like as we're talking about it. I know we're taking a long time to talk through every scene here,
Yeah.
but like the more I'm thinking about this movie too, man, this movie's at breakneck pace.
Yeah.
The whole time.
totally.
Like, there's always something important happening. There are no throwaway scenes in this movie, I don't
Right.
think. Because we do get to the part where they get back. Peter, you know, finds out that the field trip's been canceled now. So now that he's saved the world and nothing else can stop him, they're just giving up and going home.
Yeah.
And so he's bummed out about it, but he takes one more chance to ask MJ if she just wants to take a walk, basically. And she's totally into it. So they leave together, and they're walking around. And I don't remember what really prompted that part of the conversation, but he says something about telling her something. Oh yeah, he's like he wants to tell her something because he
something.
wants to tell her that he likes her and give her the necklace and whatever else. And he's like, I got to tell you something. And she's like, you're Spider-Man. And he's like, what? No, I'm not.
Clearly, I'm Night Monkey. No.
Well, I mean, he starts to backtrack and bounce around, and she's real skittish about the idea too. Like, she's like, well, you always disappear and this and that, but she's not like diving full into calling him out. She's just kind of throwing this stuff out there, and then I think like that monster thing just kind of pops up, and they're both like, wow, what in the world happened there?
No, she pulls out the camera first.
Okay, why'd she pull it out?
Because why did she pull it out?
Oh, I think because it had. I think she was talking about Night Monkey. Having the webbing like Spider-Man. That's right.
Yeah.
And when she pulls it out to show him, like this crazy monster appears, and they both kind of freak out, and then it disappears, and they're like, "What was that?" And he's asking her where she got that, and she said she was at that fight, and she picked it up off the ground. And they kind of tinker with it, and the thing shows up again. Because they're like, who would have something like this? And when the thing shows up again, it shows up with Mysterio flying around it, and they can hear him talking or whatever. And then it goes away again, and he's just sort of staring at her, and he's like, I am Spider-Man. And we've got to go, or whatever. And she's like, what? Really? Are you being serious right now? And he's like, yep. And he starts to explain everything, and she's like, she gets so excited. She's like, I was only like 60% sure, but I knew it. I figured it out. You know. And so they go running back to the hotel room. He goes to start suiting up. Ned shows up as he's suiting up, and MJ's just standing there. And Ned starts like trying to make up an excuse or whatever. And he's like, "It's okay, Ned. She knows." And she's like, "Yeah, I figured it out." And as they start talking, and he's like, well, I've got to go take care of this. I got to go find Nick Fury and tell him that Mysterio's actually a bad guy, and I gave him Edith, and I got to figure all this out. And he's going to leave, and Ned's like, well, if somebody asks, I'll just tell him such and such. And MJ's like, man, you guys lie effortlessly, don't you? But he goes swinging off to find Nick Fury, and they are basically charged with not telling anyone and making sure everybody stays safe. He goes straight to that airport, right?
No, he jumps on the train. Goes to the takes the train to Germany or wherever.
Okay, that's right. That's right. That's where he goes.
Because Fury had told him, Fury told Beck after they defeated the monster, he was like, "Oh, I got to go to I think Munich, right?
Yeah,
somewhere in Germany." He's like, "I think I got to go to Munich and meet the."
Because he tells them both. Because he says, because he's like, we could use you there, and Beck's like, I'll probably be there, and he's like, we could use you too if you really want to be Spider-Man.
Yep.
And Peter's like, nah.
Yeah. So Spider-Man,
and he knows he can't call him because he's afraid Beck will have it bugged,
right,
or whatever. So he just goes to find him in person. He shows up there and he meets up with Nick Fury, and he, gets in the car with him. They take him to the Shield, it would be Shield, but whatever headquarters they're at, because now they're not in a sewer anymore. Now they're in this giant building.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're walking in, and as they're walking in, I don't remember. Like they get into this giant Mysterio thing right now, but I don't remember exactly the progression.
Well,
but so basically,
he picks him up, and when Nick Fury meets him at the train station, even though he didn't know he was coming. Yeah. But you're like, okay, it's Nick Fury. But then you get in the car. He's like, I got to tell you about this thing. And he's like, well, hold on. Wait until we're clear.
Yeah, wait till we're in a secure location.
Yep. Yeah. And right away.
Yeah.
But then they get to the thing, and they're going through the thing. They climb up this building, and this building is like beautiful, and half of it's glass. And they climb up, take them into this office that's like this, all glass office, which is super weird. And he starts telling them about it, and then Maria Hill is standing there, and she glitches.
Yeah.
And he's like, hold on. Spider-Man's like, hold on, wait a minute. And then Nick Fury gets shot, and then Mysterio comes in, and this is where we get the big, huge Mysterio scene.
Which is such an amazing scene the way they do, because this kind of was reminiscent to me of some of like the stuff we see with like Batman and the Scarecrow. Mm-hmm. In some of those movies, but it's done on a different level.
Yeah.
Because this is not like nightmare stuff necessarily. This is just all illusion stuff, but it's put together so well. Like I could not. Mysterio's always one of those villains that seemed like you could do some cool cinematic stuff with him.
Right.
But this is what I always pictured without knowing what I was picturing.
Yeah.
I guess is the way to say it.
Yeah.
Like, man, this is perfect.
Yeah.
Like, this is so well done because he's just bouncing from room to room, but it's like being a mix of being in a hall of mirrors and a fever dream.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, they did such a good job of so he's got the drones that are projecting holograms, so Peter sees what he wants him to see, but Peter's still in, and we find out as the image fades before this starts, they're just in like some abandoned warehouse, holes in the floor and all kinds of stuff.
But he'll punch him, and Peter will be flying through what looks like endless air, except then he'll just hit something,
right?
Because he actually hit something in real life, but in the illusion you couldn't see anything there. And stuff like that, and he puts him in his old suit for a while. He's talking about how he's just a scared little kid and he can't handle all this stuff, and all the things. And basically, his end game is he's trying to figure out who Peter's told.
Who's Peter told?
Like that's what he really wants to know.
Yeah.
So they get to this point where Peter gets knocked seemingly out of the illusion,
right,
and just sort of falls out of what they think would be the building, which is just in this open lot, like you said. And then, Mysterio comes down and is fighting him again and pushing him backwards. And as he's, Mysterio shows up and is about to come on the attack, and all of a sudden, like, there's this gunshot, and he just sort of, like, straightens up and kind of falls over. And behind it, the real Nick Fury's there, who's just taking him out. And he's got all these other agents coming up, and he runs up and he tells Spider-Man, he figured out what was going on, and he knew Mysterio was a bad guy, and he showed up to help, but he still needs to know, who all Peter told, so he can make sure that like the other drones or the other Mysterio's other people,
right,
or nobody goes after them now that they've taken him out. And so Peter tells him, like Ned and MJ, and Ned's probably told Betty, but that's it. I haven't really talked to anybody else. And then that illusion fades away again, and we find out that really was Mysterio the whole time. It was him the whole time.
The whole time. It was me. It was me, Spider-Man.
And again, we get to this point where, like, Mysterio is just approaching him, and Peter's just kind of like stepping back off of him. And he's crazy at this point, and you know what a psycho he is, and how willing he is to be evil. But he's still got this earnestness to him. He was like, I don't remember exactly how he says it, but he's basically saying, "I wish it didn't come down to this. I did like you. You are a good kid. Just is how it has to be." And as he's pushing him back, there's this moment where he pauses, and then like the illusion kind of flashes away again, and Peter looks over and just gets nailed by this train.
Yeah.
And Mysterio goes on his merry way, having taken out Spider-Man.
Right.
It's totally bonkers.
Yeah.
I love it.
It was such a cool scene.
It is such a good scene.
So it was so well put together. It was so well visually stunning. It had it built to a great end as far as that scene goes. It was just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now Mysterio's got all the information he needs and all the murder bots, and the world thinks he's a hero and is about to think he's a bigger hero. Because that's the other thing Mysterio keeps going on about with his crew is like, we've got to the point where I'm out there now, but if you want to be the biggest hero in the world, you have to face like an Avengers level threat.
Right.
And so they've come up with this basically like the next thing he's going to fight is going to be this giant elemental monster that is all of the elemental monsters rolled into one.
Yep.
And they're setting this up, and they're trying to figure out a place they can do it where they can inflict maximum damage, kill a lot of people,
right,
as collateral damage, wreck a lot of the London, I think it is.
Yep.
So that
they choose London because that's where his friends are.
Oh yeah.
Remember, because they were flying back from wherever, Prague or wherever, through London, and that's what Nick Fury had asked him. He was like, "Where are your friends?" So we can get them safe. And he's like, "Oh, they're in London," and that's when he was like, "Oh, okay, so that'll be perfect."
Yep. And so they're setting all that up kind of on the side. In the meantime, Peter gets on the train somehow and passes out or something like that. I think, because he wakes up without his mask and he's in this jail cell with these, 2 or 3. They look like very nice soccer hooligans.
Yeah.
I would guess.
Yeah.
But they're immediately super nice to him.
Yep.
Where does he end up being? It's like somewhere in like Sweden or something like
somewhere
that.
In Sweden.
Denmark or
somewhere.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Well, that's the whole joke is that the Netherlands. He's in the Netherlands.
Yep.
But that's the whole joke is that he can't pronounce the name of the town.
Yeah. So he wakes up in this jail cell, and
Wow, everybody's so nice here.
They're all being super nice to him. He gets up and he just kind of like he knows he's got to leave, so he just sort of like opens the jail.
Snaps the lock off and opens the door.
Yeah, and starts to walk away. And the other 3 guys who were in the jail like get up and they go and reclose the door and lock themselves back in.
Well, it's also clearly like a small, tight knit town because they're telling them like how the guard had to step out to take a phone call, and it's probably the wife. The wife's pregnant now, and they're like, "Oh, really? The wife's pregnant?" And he's just like, "Oh, whatever. I'm out here, guys."
Yeah.
Well, and he walks by the guard, and the guard's on the phone wearing the black
monkey
mask,
Yeah,
and he's saying something
mask
on the phone like, "Yeah, night monkey." Yeah. And, he goes out and he's in this kind of marketplace and he's looking around and he's like, where am I? And the guy's trying to tell him, what the town's called. And he's like, oh, man, I need a phone or something. And the guy, like rushes to hand him a phone and he ends up calling Happy. And that's, they do that joke where he's trying to tell Happy where he is and the guy's got to get on the phone and tell Happy the name of the town.
Yeah.
And so Happy shows up in a Quinjet or whatever it is. Stark Jet. Who knows what they are. He's in the, Peter's in the middle of this like field of flowers, and he goes up in the plane with Happy, and they have another one of those kind of speeches because Happy is another mentor figure for Peter now, and they set a little bit of that up earlier too. I mean, they've had some talks throughout this movie, but they've just been more comic relief with Happy. Yeah. This one gets serious, and it it kind of tells him everything. He's like, I messed up real bad. I gave Edith away to the bad guy. My friends are in danger now. I don't know what to do, and Tony would have known what to do, and Happy kind of tells him Tony messed up a lot. Tony got knocked around a lot. Tony didn't second guess anything except for his own ideas, which he couldn't stop doing. He wasn't perfect on those levels, but he saw something in you, and so if you're gonna grab those reins, then now's your time to do it. And Peter's like, well, I don't even have a suit, and Happy's like, well, I'll take care of getting us where we're going. Or I can take care of the suit. You just tell us where we're going or whatever. And he gives Peter access to this like lab in the back of the plane, and he immediately starts pulling up these electronic equipments like Tony did in all the Iron Man movies. He can put his hands in them and interact with them, and he just starts building this suit. And it's very reminiscent of the first Iron Man movie when Tony's building the Iron Man suit and putting it all together on hologram first and then actually building it. And then the machines are kind of putting it together for him, and they have this. I really like that moment where Happy's just sitting there like watching Peter basically be Tony, and you can see because Happy has suffered such a great loss here.
Yeah.
With his best friend and whatever else you would call Tony.
Whatever, yeah.
For as far as we're concerned, their entire lives, however long he's been, because we've seen flashbacks to the 90s and those guys were together, you know. And so now for him to look on and just see this kid really taking up that mantle, I thought was a pretty cool emotional moment there for Jon Favreau. So way to act, Jon Favreau. But they take off. They're heading to London to stop this thing. Peter's building his new suit and getting it ready to go. And we basically, we fly right into Act 3 climax here, don't we?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Like I said, there's no wasted moments in this movie.
Right. What do you think of the new Spider-Man suit that he builds?
I dug it.
It's basically like looks the same, but it's like black and red instead of the blue and red.
Yeah.
So
I don't like. I'm fine with him going back to the original colors as soon as the new movie comes out, and I'm sure he will.
He'll have a new suit for the next one anyway.
Because, but I thought they got to sell the toys.
Yeah, there you go.
They got to have the new suits for the PlayStation game.
Yeah,
which totally. They do. It's on there. Yeah.
Yep. They added that and the Night Monkey suit immediately. I wish they would have called it.
They do have the Night Monkey.
They don't call it Night Monkey. I wish they did. It's called Stealth Spider-Man.
Yeah.
They should have called that Night Monkey. Yeah. That would have been amazing.
Who knows how rights work for stuff like that, though. So, because they don't call, I don't think they call the Homecoming suit. They call it something like the Stark suit or something like that.
That's what they call the Iron Spider suit.
Is that what they call the Iron Spider suit?
They call it the Stark suit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, I thought it was a cool suit for, good suit for a final fight.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever see it again, but it was totally neat looking. But that's basically it, really. And I mean,
so he goes in, he fights a cloud of drones.
Yeah. There's not a lot to say scene by scene for what's going on here because basically Jaron just said it.
Yeah.
Swings in and he fights a cloud of drones. Extend that out over about 7 minutes.
On the London Bridge. On the London Bridge. You can imagine Spider-Man swinging around the London Bridge being chased by a bunch of weaponized drones That's it.
Yep.
You got it.
Now they do the cool side scenes where Happy shows up to save all his friends.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he shows up in the jet, and and again, this was in the trailers, but it was such a funny moment because he shows up and he's like, "Hey, I'm here to save you guys. I work with Spider-Man." And Flash is like, "You work for Spider-Man?" He's like, "I work with Spider-Man. We gotta go." And then the plane explodes, and he's like, "We gotta go that way."
Yeah.
You work for Spider-Man? Oh man.
And they run into. Where they run into? I guess they run into
like a
Buckingham
museum or
Palace,
something.
right?
Oh yeah.
Because Happy's trying to direct them to the vault that holds the crown jewels.
Yeah.
So, and they run through that, like that museum area, and fight a drone down there with a mace and spear. It's a good scene.
Yeah, it's good. It's cool. It's all that stuff's going on.
But it's not as cool as when we get the Spider-Man Mysterio confrontation.
Yes, totally.
Somebody else.
Yeah,
I'm leaving it to you guys. You guys are the Spider-Man guys.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm trying, and this is where because this is like a 7-minute whirlwind, so I'm trying to remember the important beats because I think they all come right at the end there. He basically like bursts into Mysterio's in this tunnel.
Yep.
Like a sky tunnel,
right?
Like a walkway or something like that between buildings or wherever it is. But he can see a view of everything that's going on, and Spider-Man's got to fight his way into that thing while on fire for part of it.
And he loses he doesn't have his web shooters or any of his gizmos by that point.
Oh, did he lose his web shooters?
Yeah, remember because he couldn't just swing up there. He had to do the thing where he jumped on one of the drones and got launched up. And there's kind of that moment where he walks out from behind he was kind of hiding, making his plan, and he grabs something, and he's got like one of the pieces of a drone. And he walks out, and he's kind of got it looks like he's got a shield and hammer type thing.
Oh,
and
that's right. That's right.
But then he runs over and uses one of the other drones to bounce him up into that.
Yeah.
So
he gets launched up into that thing, and they basically kind of do they almost do like a New Hope moment with the Force because he gets trapped
just like
in this
Star Wars.
Exactly. Every movie.
Exactly, yeah.
Just like Star Wars.
Just like every movie.
He squares.
That's an inside joke. Sorry, it's not for you guys to get.
He squares off with Mysterio, and he knows these illusions are coming, and they've brought up the Peter Tingle again.
Right.
At some point leading up to this fight, and so he basically just kind of closes his eyes, and as this illusion stuff is happening around him, and it's supposed to be going on, he's got Mysterio in front of him. And they're having this banter, or he's about to attack, or whatever's going on, and then all of a sudden he just sort of reaches up and grabs, and you hear this gunshot, and the illusion kind of bursts away.
Well, that's way at the end.
Is
that's the last thing that happens?
Isn't that what happened right there with the Tingle?
Well, no. Remember, he had to use the Peter Tingle because the Peter Tingle had been kind of spotty, and he hadn't been able to use it properly the whole movie. And so this is the moment where he assumes the full mantle of Spider-Man and gets the spider sense under control because Mysterio blacks out that whole tunnel, so he can't see anything. So then he's using the spider sense to fight all the way through.
Put them together. That's
he smashes all the drones all the way through, and then he gets down. Mysterio has all the drones open fire, and he avoids all of them, but Mysterio gets hit and goes down.
Okay.
And that's when he's walking up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And he's walking up, and it looks like Mysterio's dying, and they're having a last-minute kind of
conversation.
Conversation, heart-to-heart type thing. And that's when he snatches it, and the gunshot goes off, and he's got it, and he's like, you can't trick me anymore.
Yeah. But Mysterio really was injured. Even though he tried to shoot him, because they have that, they have that moment, they have that last-ditch effort for Mysterio to kill him. He ends up failing, and then Mysterio basically lies there and just dies on him. And then that's the end of the fight. Once Peter he does that, Peter takes Edith back, takes control back over it, cancels all the
drones. Turns off the murder bots.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if he sends them back into space or the bottom of the ocean or wherever, but they go away.
Yeah.
The illusion's been done, and now the world's been saved again. Or at least London.
Yeah. Yeah, at least London. Well, I like how that whole thing was basically for all the people who were wondering where the spider sense was in the first movie. now this whole end fight had to end with him using the spider sense, the Peter Tingle.
Well, and I like also how it hadn't fully developed.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
so like
yeah.
it makes sense why it wasn't a big focus of Civil War or the first movie
Right.
or whatever else,
Right.
because this is sort of like something he's getting used
He's
to
still
using.
getting used to
So,
it. Yeah. Yep, I accept that. That's
Yep.
fine.
But then, I mean, the rest of it's pretty much epilogue. I think the kids all come back home. Betty and Ned break up.
Yeah.
But it's very amicable. They're still very good friends.
Yeah.
Peter and MJ get together.
Sometimes a man loves a woman, and then they grow apart.
Yeah.
I wanted to punch Ned every time he was talking about their relationship, man.
Yeah.
They show back. They give you the kind of those. They've done this a couple times through the movie too. They make Flash such a sad character, because he gets there and like everybody's parents are there and they're waiting because their kids almost died in Europe on the news and all that stuff, and everybody's parents are there to greet them and all excited, and Flash comes walking up to just his driver with the Thompson sign or whatever, and he's like, "Did Mother not have time to come or whatever?"
Right.
And they've made allusions to that through the whole movie, like his parents sort of just totally neglecting him. But May's there, and she's like arguing with somebody about like where she's parked, and Peter comes running out, and she gets super excited. She's like, "All right, let's go. Where's your bag?" "Oh, wait, it exploded." Oh, which is that just dawned on me. That's sad because that was Ben's suitcase.
Oh. Too soon.
So,
Nerds.
but I mean, it's basically that, and then it goes right into that swinging scene, doesn't it? He's saying something. Oh, he sits. He's got this sit down where they've got the camera focused on Peter, and he's saying, look, we've got to talk about this. We got to get this out in the open. We've really got to go and figure out, dive in here and see what's going on. Are you two dating? And they pan back over, and it's Happy and May, because we sort of glossed over that too.
Yeah,
they've been making hints at them being a couple the whole time. There's a scene sort of in the middle where he calls May, and Happy's in the background, and he's like, "Why is Happy there?" And so he's like, "Are you two dating?" And they flash back over to those two, and Happy's like, "Yes." And May's like, "Nah, I wouldn't say dating."
Yeah.
And Happy's like, "Wait, you wouldn't say what?" And so they start arguing, and that's when Peter's like, "You know what? I actually gotta go. I've got a date." So he shows up. MJ's just standing there in the middle of New York. Spider-Man swings down, grabs her, takes her swinging. She is freaking out the entire time. He drops her off, and she's like, "Yep, never, ever doing that again."
Yep.
And I think credits kind of roll there.
No, you bled into.
Well, yeah, I bled
yeah.
too much. But it does end with them swinging.
Well, yeah, it just ends with them. It ends with him swinging down and being like, "You sure you want to do this?" And she's like, "Yeah." And then they swing off, and she's like screaming.
Yep, that's right. And then
it goes to
roll.
credits.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we go through
back. Then we get the mid-credit scene.
Yeah.
Which, oh my god.
Which do we want to do any before we get to the credit stuff? Should we do any final thoughts on movie as a whole?
Sure. Yeah, we can do that here if we want to. I was also kind of like just browsing through some of the Easter eggs and stuff because I realized there was a few things we kind of didn't talk about. But
I still haven't caught a lot of them.
I really want to go back and watch some of this other stuff, but maybe we'll go through this after because I think we got to talk about some of the post-credit scenes first too before I go through some of this. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I don't know if I liked it more than Homecoming, but I had a lot of fun with it. I already talked about how I love the way they've handled Mysterio as a villain, and just how in general I think the MCU is doing an incredible job with the everyman villains kind of a thing. I think it's really awesome because Spider-Man's got a great rogues gallery, and he's got a lot of those, a lot of times when you ask somebody who Spider-Man's villains are, like, everybody knows Venom, everybody knows Green Goblin, but he's got all these other lower tier guys, and I like that we're seeing some time for them to shine, and it fits in really well with kind of Spider-Man's development as this hero, because now we've spent all these movies with him still basically figuring out how to be Spider-Man, right? We've now seen him in 4 or 5 movies, but he's still trying to figure out how to be Spider-Man. And that's cool, and I think that works really well, specifically with the characters like Vulture and Mysterio. But I feel like after this movie, I am now ready for us to jump a bit forward a little bit, and maybe that'll play into some of the things we saw with the post-credit scenes. But like, I don't know, like I like that we've got the thing going on with him and MJ now. That's great. We've done all this stuff where he's like figuring out how to be Spider-Man. I would really like to see progression from this movie take us out of high school. I think it's time to move Peter away from high school. And I don't know, like, because I think he's only 16 or 17 in this movie, did they say?
Yeah.
But it feels like he's been in high school forever. And I know we've got the 5-year jump, but like literally how long have we been seeing Spider-Man in these movies? It feels like he's been in high school forever at this point. And I kind of want to see him get past that now.
I think I feel a little on the... I mean, because one of the... Young Spider-Man's my favorite Spider-Man.
Okay.
You know, and I really... I won't say anything bad about the Raimi universe by any means, you know, especially the first one there. I didn't mind what they did with it. I mean, at the time... Spider-Man was an evolved character. He had been way out of, you know, the stuff I had been reading. I know not everybody's a comic fan. Some people don't know, whatever. But I was used to an older Spider-Man, and so they gave me the origins in high school and then moved him immediately out. And I didn't hate that by any means, but I always liked younger, nerdier, doesn't know what he's doing as much Spider-Man quite a bit.
Right.
And they didn't, you know, they sort of did the same thing with the Amazing Universe, where like he was kind of there. And they kind of got through it pretty quick. I don't remember what. I think he graduated at the end of the first one, I want to say, because I don't think the second one they were in high school anymore. But I know they did that.
I only remember one thing about
Man,
it.
I was going to say,
but the Amazing,
I feel like I don't remember anything about the Amazing.
Yeah.
I remember the Times Square
fight,
because that was awesome. That was my favorite scene in the Spider-Man
what
movie.
I always think about those Amazing movies,
wasn't
I think
the
like those
second
would be.
Raimi
I think
one.
those would be really fun Spider-Man movies if we didn't have 5 other better Spider-Man movies. You know what I mean?
Still, man.
Like I enjoyed the first one quite a bit. I didn't put it on the same level, but there were parts of it I liked more. I thought they nailed certain parts better, but they just made it really dark and weird. And they had a Peter Parker that was so cool.
Yeah, I just disliked.
Super cool Peter.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I would have ever gotten into those movies because I disliked the Andrew Garfield, Peter Parker. It just did. Like I just disliked him as Spider-Man, not the actor necessarily, or you know, I just didn't like that Spider-Man.
I feel like this is kind of like we can have this argument about Batman's a lot too. It's like one guy's a great Bruce Wayne, the other guy's a great Batman, whatever. I thought they did a lot more with his Spider-Man than Tobey's did because his Spider-Man had way more personality. Because Tobey's really wasn't that quippy, you know, and they were basically just working towards the next time they could pull his mask off and he could get serious again.
No joke.
The Andrew Garfield one was cracking jokes the whole time, you know. But that's a different argument. Point being, I really like the high school Spider-Man, and I think
so I like it
if they're gonna make 20 more of these movies, I could take 2 or 3 more. High school ones. They're not going to.
I know.
So if they move him out of high school next movie, but I don't know. I mean, the way these contracts work, the way the studio's working together works, every one I get, I'm just counting myself lucky for. You know? I'm pretty sure we'll get at minimum 1 more. I don't really know what.
Assume.
Yeah, I don't know what I hope for though, because I want them to build towards a ton of things that'll take 4 more movies to come to fruition. And if I'm not going to get the full story, I don't want to see the beginning of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So here's the something to think about. In this world, the way they've built it, it will make no sense for like Peter Parker to graduate high school or college. Like he'll never be, you know, freelance photographer because there's no reason he won't just go straight to work for Stark Enterprise. You know what I mean? In a high level, you know, like it'd be to the point it would make no sense. Like you can't write a story where he's like, nah, you know what? I just need to go cut my teeth as a you know what I mean?
As a photojournalist.
Yeah, exactly.
He was doing that to earn extra money, right?
Right.
That was his whole deal.
Yeah.
Well,
you know?
So they could still throw him in.
To earn extra money, that was his living, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's how
I
he was
started
making...
off in high school.
I got you.
Trying to earn a little bit of money to help me pay bills.
Yeah. So, like, even if we get out of high school, though, in these movies, like, he would still go to college. We would probably get college Spider-Man still, you know what I mean? But I guess also with the whole, like, advancing forward thing, like, it's more than just the high school aspect of the whole thing, but, like, the Everman villains have been awesome. Mysterio was great. Vulture was great. But now that we are this far established with the character and the world that he's in, and that we're entering a 4th phase of the MCU... I think I'm ready for a Norman Osborn.
Exactly, and I'm fully on board with that.
We need. I think this is.
And the thing with Norman too is he doesn't have to be a Spider-Man villain for every movie he's in.
That's what I mean.
He can be an MCU villain.
He could be an MCU villain, I think.
Well, but I'm sure Sony owns him. right?
I don't.
Now, I mean, he would be in the same grouping with all this, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Man, but oh man, I hope that's not something that would hold things back. Because, gosh,
I mean, it depends. I really think because I heard, I don't believe it, but I heard something going into this movie about how, like, if it doesn't make at least $1 billion, that, you know, this might be the last one we get anyway. I can't imagine they wouldn't have been prepared for
it seems like
contract-wise this, but I really wonder. I don't know the specifics of how that works, but if this was a test run, you know, maybe they only leased him for a couple of movies to see how it goes. Yeah. Maybe it's 3, because I'm pretty sure we'll get at least one more, but I don't think anybody knows what's going on after that. But my hope is they continue to do extraordinarily well, and then Sony's willing to go, okay, we'll give you 6 more. And they have a long enough window to where they can do some of those bigger stories. The other problem there, though, is I don't think Tom Holland's going to do 9 Spider-Man movies,
right?
You know, and I don't know if I want 15 years worth of just Spider-Man. I mean, I'd be happy every time, but it's not something I'm like projecting for, you know?
Right. Well, I mean, they were pretty heavy-handed in this whole movie, though, about him being the next Iron Man, and it kind of feels like that's more than just like a thing in the storyline of the movie. It almost feels like the MCU is trying to thrust Spider-Man up to being their primary guy.
Yeah.
Which would make sense since he was always the primary guy in the comic books. Like, he was like number 1 before the MCU kind of made Iron Man the most well-known
Spider-Man
superhero.
was always bigger than the X-Men.
Exactly.
You know? So.
Spider-Man was always the guy. And it kind of felt like they were trying to put him in that position with this movie. So I don't know if that is really where they're going with it.
Then your question also becomes, you know, especially with the phase layout, I mean, are we going to start getting 11 Marvel movies a year? Doubt it. I think they're pretty well stuck at 3.
Right.
Or set at 3, whatever you want to call it.
Well, they're set at 2 and 1 Sony movie.
Well, no, I mean, yearly they usually come out with 3.
Yeah.
Just sometimes they're a Sony movie
now
with the Spider-Man thing. But, I mean, like I said, we don't have time for, you know, 4 Shang-Chi's and 3 The Eternals and 9 Spider-Mans and Fantastic Four and X-Men and whatever else they may end up bringing in, and, you know, another Thor, all these other things that are coming out. Like, where's that going to fit in? So I basically, I kind of just don't project what I want next, because I don't even know what I want next.
Right.
Because it would depend on how long they're going to go, what kind of deal they have, and all sorts of other things that I have no knowledge of or control over.
Right.
So I'm just going to sit back and whenever they give me something, be happy. But I would definitely like to see some of the villains we've seen, some of the real top-tier Spider-Man villains that we've seen in, like, the Raimi universe. I would love to see what the MCU would do with those.
Yeah, me too.
I just want to make sure they're not trying to shoehorn too much in.
Well, yeah, I don't want them to shoehorn too much in. But I guess, like, I think, like, Peter's been figuring it out, all these movies. I would love to see him, like, be all figured out in the next, like, he's got it down to a science now, like, he's the amazing Spider-Man, and it's awesome, and that's when the real super powered villains start showing up, where we get the Green Goblins and the bigger threat kind of guys.
I would definitely be into seeing him with a little more confidence as it goes through. I don't think Spider-Man's ever one who had it figured out.
Well,
like, he never felt like he did, but I know what you're saying there, and I'm totally down for that.
And I guess I've been playing so much of the dang PS4 game, and, like, I just love the way that his character is in that game. He's more of an experienced Spider-Man in that game, dealing with stuff. But I don't know, I love that dynamic of the character, and I would just love to see him shift that direction a little bit more now, like lean a little bit more into it now, because he's spent the last 5 movies trying to figure out how to be Spider-Man. Let's I
hope they make Tom Holland Spider-Man movies until Tom Holland becomes Peter B. Parker.
Peter B. Parker, and then we do the Miles stuff. I'm in. Man, that's something that could always happen down the road, though, too, right? They could always introduce Miles.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure. I mean, like I said, they've hinted at him already. I'm sure that's in the works somewhere. If this continues, My other thought, I've always because Sony's building their own Spider-Verse just without Spider-Man. I wonder if they could start doing Miles movies while Marvel was doing Peter movie. Yeah, it would be super weird.
They already kind of did, so.
Well, with a cartoon, but I mean, like in their live action universe.
I don't think they would do that until the Spider. I mean, we're gonna get 100 more of those Spider-Verse movies
They're totally going to do another Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
movie
I think we're gonna get. I think we're gonna get tons more of those.
Won an Oscar.
There's
and made
no
all the
reason.
money.
Yeah.
You know, there's no reason to do a live action Miles while they've got that
That's
running.
fair.
We're just gonna get.
right.
Yeah, we're just gonna get
He'll
a bunch
be
of
the
Venoms.
star of the animated movies for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Which is awesome. I'm totally into that.
Oh yeah. So this has been two Spider-Man guys and Jaron gushing about Spider-Man.
All right. Well,
Hold on. Well, I have a final thought.
Okay,
Something I did.
Well,
want
we
got to
go through the
for
post-credit stuff,
Well,
too.
I know we got the post-credit stuff. I did not in Homecoming. I really liked the whole, the Vulture's whole thing was, these millionaires don't care about us. And then in this one, Mysterio's whole thing is, we're going to get I'm going to get these million, I'm going to get Stark back and, normal guy taking it for the team because nobody, superheroes and all that. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
right.
I really liked that in Homecoming, in the first one, that when Spider-Man went to take on the Vulture, he had to do it as himself in his little sweatpants suit, and he had to do it himself.
Yeah.
And I kind of did not like as much that in this one he got to build a all new Stark suit and be the millionaire coming and smacking down Mysterio for you know what I mean. I just didn't like that. I didn't like that as well.
I get where you're going, but I think like when you really got down to the final moments of that battle, I mean, like it took millionaire tech Spider-Man to get through all the millionaire tech drones, but when he got to him and Mysterio, he didn't have all of that stuff. He had to just basically close his eyes and rely on his
Peter Tingle.
sense. Yeah, his Peter Tingle.
Yeah, but he still got all the millionaire perks going into the fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he was worn down, and you know what I mean. Like, but I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, every hero goes into the final fight and gets wore down until they got nothing left and pull it out because they're the hero. Yep. I just thought it was better. Because and maybe it's a personal thing, because in these movies when these villains get their little monologue about the millionaires who don't care about us down here, every time they have that monologue I'm like, well, I'm on the Vulture's side now.
Right. He's absolutely right.
Yeah, right. So in Homecoming, when the Vulture had his little speech, and I was like, yep, you're absolutely right, Vulture. I'm with you. Give me my wing harness. I'll help. Then when Peter rolls in, and Peter's not a millionaire fighting for what's right, you still get to be on. In this one, I was just kind of like, oh, well, it's a good thing Peter Parker is $1 million trust fund adoptive dad.
Yeah.
Set him up so he can win the fight.
Yeah.
I don't think $1 million would have bought a shoelace on that suit.
I mean, you're right. Yeah, you're right. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Millionaire.
Yeah.
Well, Tony's a billionaire, right?
I still when we keep talking about the Vulture, I still love that line. When Peter's like, "Oh, you can't be selling all these weapons. That's not good," or whatever.
Yeah.
Vulture's just like, "Where do you think Tony made all that money?"
Right.
All right, so we did the post-credit stuff.
Post-credit stuff.
Mid-credit first.
Mid-credits.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
jeez.
Yeah,
you're good.
the mid-credit is bonkers.
So,
right?
yeah. Oh my.
So
Yeah.
because this is picks up where he's swinging MJ through the city. This is
She's
this
freaking
part.
out.
This part was in the trailers, and this is another one where I was like, "Where's that scene at where he's swinging around with her and she's freaking out?" Oh, it was the mid-credit scene. So yeah, she's freaking the heck out because he's swinging through the city with her. But it's a neat visual. Spider-Man swinging around with MJ. It's cool stuff. But then as he puts her down and kind of lands up on the light post there, and they're having a conversation about it, all of a sudden they're in Times Square.
Yeah.
And on one of the big screens in Times Square, there's like a big news bulletin.
I thought because he landed and he was like, "You okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm never doing that again." And then he's like, "Okay, well, I guess I gotta go." And she's like, "All right, be safe." I'm like, what a weird ending to that. You know, like, what a bizarre date. The date was basically he picked her up, scared the bejesus out of her, dropped her back off, and just flipped away,
So when the screen pops on, we hear a recognizable voice.
Well, first we don't.
We don't.
Okay.
Because it pops on with like a regular news guy, and he's just got this breaking story. And there was a scene when he was basically when Peter was fighting Mysterio. he says something like, kill them all. That's what he does. That's what he says to stop the drones. When he takes Edith back over.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's the doctored footage.
She's like, he's like, shut the droids down, and she's like, do you want me to stop all these droids? He's like, yeah, kill them all. And so they've got this footage of the last moments of Mysterio when he's talking to, he's laying there dying, and they've got like Spider-Man's legs next to him or whatever, and you can just hear Spider-Man saying something about drones, and then kill them all, and they're making it look like he's the one who was ordering the drones to kill everybody.
So do we think that was a Mysterio thing? Like Mysterio's still alive and he did that?
No,
or is this a doctor, like they got a hold of the footage and...
They showed the guy from the first Iron Man taking... like a hard drive or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Because I've seen that.
Well, and he said something. Mysterio called back to him and said something. Do you get it or something like that?
Yeah. Because I've seen that theory too, where people are like, "Oh, this means Mysterio's still alive." I'm like, "Well, they showed that guy taking that stuff."
Well, I totally think Mysterio's still alive, though.
Yeah.
Did they? I'm trying to recall the entire scene. Regardless,
that scene. So here's the thing: that scene, being able to doctor that footage that way, hinges on Mysterio being dead, and Mysterio would not have come up with a plan, which I think clearly that was Mysterio's plan. Would not have come up with a plan where he sacrificed himself.
Fair enough.
So Mysterio, I think Mysterio's still alive. I think Mysterio will be the bad guy in the next one again.
Yeah.
Or we could be building to a Sinister Six.
I was about to say, I really want to see a Sinister Six full of people who kind of like Peter, but are still trying to murder him.
Yeah. Well, that's every Spider-Man villain, right? Isn't every Spider-man villain a pseudo father figure that turns
Norman
around?
was like that too.
Norman, Doc Ock, and
Doc Ock, yep,
the Lizard.
Electro's not.
No, Electro is not.
Neither is Venom. Eddie Brock hated Peter Parker.
Yeah. But they show that news footage, and they make it look like Spider-Man tried to kill everybody, and so Peter's already looking on and kind of freaking out, and then they let you know that the footage was provided by controversial website dailybugle.net.
Dailybugle.net.
Yep. And that's when we hear the familiar voice. Because they introduced J. Jonah Jameson, and it comes on, and it's J.K. Simmons again.
Yes.
Which
I don't know where you guys were when you saw this the first time. I saw it very early. I saw it opening night in a room full of nerds.
When we watched it in the drive-in, that was when.
That's right.
That was my first time seeing it.
When I saw it, you could feel the theater hold its breath because they were like, J. Jonah Jameson, and there's this pause. And I felt the whole theater go waiting to see who it was gonna be, and then it was J.K. Simmons.
Because that I've said from the beginning, I really want to see the MCU Jonah because I love Jonah. I always want to see the Jonah, whatever it is.
Spider-Man's
but one of the reasons I love him as much as I do is because of the J.K. Simmons Jonah.
Yeah.
So it's the only bummer is no matter what they do, it'll never live up because that's what that character is now in my mind. And so what did they do? The only thing they could to make it live up, they just went and got him.
Yeah.
And why not? Why not?
Man, why not?
So amazing. And I love the idea that he's like InfoWars in this world or whatever,
Yeah, it's totally like they call it the controversial. I love the Daily Bugle is a controversial BuzzFeed kind of website or something like that. I love it. Or InfoWars, like you said. That's amazing.
It's so fantastic. But he comes on and he starts piping off about Spider-Man being a menace and all this stuff, and how he's got this one more piece of information to reveal or whatever, and they cut back to the footage and it's
and he's talking about how Quentin Beck, Mysterio, is a hero. Yeah. Which is another reason I think that Still alive, yeah, because then he gets to show back up and still play the... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because to everybody else, nobody else knows
his plan
the
would still be
reveal.
in motion, theoretically.
Right.
Because remember, Nick Fury, I guess, kind of knows at this point, but Nick Fury's still a ghost. S.H.I.E.L.D.'s not really a thing in the public eye by any means, So...
So anyway,
this is another thing that kind of ties to the PS4 game, though, because this is kind of how the Daily Bugle is, or Jameson is in the PS4 game.
Yeah.
He's like a podcast or like YouTube thing that just pops on every now and then with his conspiracies on why Spider-Man's a menace and why he's destroying
I haven't
the city.
played the game.
It's
pretty
oh
awesome.
man, it's so good. It's so good. So like that's why when this happened, I'm like, this is awesome because this is kind of just like I've been listening to it in the video game this whole time. I loved it. I thought that was awesome.
But he announces he's got this one more piece of information, and they cut back to the footage, and it's Quentin Beck staring right at the camera. He's like, Spider-Man's going crazy and whatever, and Spider-Man's real name is, and then it kind of like blurs out and goes to static, and then it pops back on, and it's him again. He's like, Spider-Man's real name is Peter Parker.
Yeah.
And just announced it, and then they have that other, just the same as Homecoming. They have that moment where they square up on. Well, I guess in Homecoming it was May screaming it.
Yeah.
Because she sees him in the spider suit and just goes, "What the fuck?" And then they cut it off. And this one they zoom right in on Peter, and he's like, "What the fuck?" And
I
then
love
it
he
just
does
cuts
like
out.
the hands on the head and everything.
Yeah.
Man, dude. So what? Okay. What kind of impact do you think that's going to have? Because
I don't
first
know.
of all, like, if we really think about the idea that this is a controversial website, a lot of people could just straight up like, well, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that could mean nothing.
But
really.
like, I mean, with that, there's going to be, I don't know. I can't imagine they're just going to pretend it didn't happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, but so one thing you can look at is Aunt May finding out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker. Huge deal in the history of Spider-Man,
right.
the character,
Yeah.
right. Because most of the time she was the one. Even when MJ and the Green Goblin and J.K. Simmons, and everybody else in the whole world knew he was Spider-Man. Aunt May never knew he was Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But then they just kind of glossed over it, and it's just like, oh well, she knows, and it's cool.
I was wondering if they should have saved her finding out for this moment right here. Like, would that have had more impact if May found... Like, I know they used May a lot for different things in this, but, like, if this was the moment that May found out that Peter was Spider-Man, I feel like the impact would have been bigger.
Yeah.
Well, who knows what impact they want to have? I mean,
Yeah.
and that's the thing, because also in the MCU, secret identities have not been not factored in at all. In fact, most of the secret identities just kind of get poked fun at, like Donald Blake and...
that's true.
everybody
But I
just
feel
knows.
like-
Everybody just knows Captain America is Steve Rogers, and they don't even really. They don't even use their superhero names. I mean, nobody's called Captain Marvel in the Captain Marvel movie. you know what I mean? Like,
But I feel like
They
Spider-Man...
did call her that in this.
they did call her that in this, but like even she was not in her own movie, not in Endgame. They never called her Captain Marvel. So
I feel like he's a character that needs it though, and like even in this movie, like Mysterio used that information against him when he found out about MJ and everything, because like he gave him the visions of like MJ getting hurt and stuff like that, and it was like he was using it against Spider-Man, and that was always the whole point for Spider-Man to remain anonymous, is to protect his friends and family.
Yeah.
And I like that aspect of the character, so I don't know.
And it's, every time I rewatched Homecoming, I'd see that end. I'd be like, man, I really wonder what they're going to do with that. And then, like you said, we got to Far From Home, and it's just there. Now, granted, between Homecoming and Far From Home, the entire universe almost got destroyed and then brought back to life.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of other stuff has happened, and so that would be kind of a weird thing to focus on. Anyway, you don't get snapped back to reality after 5 years of being disappeared and be like, you can't be running out there, flipping around buildings, blah blah blah. Like you've been through some stuff,
Right.
But in this case, they could easily still, the next movie could start and Spider-Man could just be one of those controversial figures that some people like him and some people hate him.
Right.
Because of, like, the news outlets there, and the Peter Parker thing could easily be a really big deal that everybody knows, or something that they kind of shade in the the halfway where like some people believe and some people don't, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where that's gonna go, but it's a fun way to end this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's you almost feel like it's definitely gonna tie him. It's gonna have to tie him to Stark Industries a little more, because he's got to have some kind of you know what I mean, like the option is you almost feel like he's gonna have to make some kind of statement, and he's not just gonna do that from his aunt's house type thing, you know what I mean? Everybody kind of knows that Spider-Man is connected to Stark Industries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seems like they know that anyway. I mean, I guess they could go anyway. So you feel like that's going to have to tie him in there. I mean, for the stories they've kind of been telling, I mean, Homecoming, he kind of had to decide, was he Spider-Man or was the suit Spider-Man? And in this one, he kind of had to decide what it meant to be Spider-Man for himself. And now he's got to decide what it's going to mean to be Peter and Spider-Man.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of, storytelling-wise, it makes sense of a progression that, well, now the whole world knows he's got to decide if he can be Peter and Spider-Man or if he's going to quit being Spider-Man or,
right.
I bet Flash's head is going to explode.
Oh, man, Flash, yeah. Awesome. All right, well, final credit scene.
Yeah, the very end credit, which, again, is another thing that solidifies the masterful, writing and putting together of this movie, is because we get a scene with Nick Fury and
Mario Hill.
Mario Hill. Drat. Driving in this car, and pretty much immediately they morph into the Skrulls from Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Talos and Talos and Mrs. Talos.
Mrs. Talos.
I believe she's credited Lady Skull 1.
Oh, okay.
Lady Skrull.
But she starts, which I also think was kind of, because at the end of Endgame, they had this moment where they showed Peter going back into school, and there was a guy in the background that I saw a bunch of internet conspiracy things, and they're like, oh, that looks like Ben Mendelsohn. That's probably, the Skrull, from Captain Marvel is, the principal of his school now, or something like that, really weird why they would do that. But then I think it was funny that by the end of this movie, Ben Mendelsohn was in it as the Skrull from that, but he was just Nick Fury the whole time.
Yeah.
And Lady Skrull number 1 is telling him, you got to tell him. And so he's sitting there going, this is really embarrassing for a shapeshifter. Because he didn't realize it was an illusion the whole time.
He didn't realize Mysterio was, yeah.
And so he gets on the phone on this video thing, and he starts talking. He's like, "Hey, so just want to give you an update. I gave the kid the glasses. It was a really touching moment. For a little bit there, but it kind of went a little sideways for a while there. But it's taken care of. It's all's well. But I really think you should know about it or call me back or whatever." Going on, and then they flash over.
He tells him you got to come back because everybody's asking about the Avengers and what's going to happen next.
And I don't know what to tell him.
Yeah.
And so then they go to the other side of that phone call, and it's Nick Fury on a beach.
Yeah.
Watching this video message come through and looking at it and sipping on a drink or whatever, and he puts it down and he gets up and he's got no shoes on, and he starts walking away from the beach area, and they pan out and he's actually on this giant spaceship.
It's on the holodeck.
And he starts walking towards
Tahiti.
Like a window, and he screams something like, all right, time to get to work. Who's got my shoes? And then that's the end of it. Yeah. So now Nick Fury's deep in space somewhere doing goodness knows what.
Yeah. So my brain was having some crazy stuff going on when this whole scene was unfolding. Because first of all, I was like, man, that totally explains why Fury felt off the whole movie.
Yes.
Which was amazing that they really worked that in, because Fury felt very un-Fury through the whole movie, making weird mistakes and just things you wouldn't see the real Fury do.
Exactly.
Well, they explained it a little bit, because there was the one line where he was like, I used to pride myself on knowing everything. I disappear for 5 years, I come back, and now I know nothing.
Yeah.
So you were kind of like, okay, all right. But there were definitely still times where you were
there was a lack of gravitas around Nick Fury.
Yeah.
And again, through the whole movie, I let it go because I was like, they're kind of playing Nick Fury for comic relief, which is weird.
Yeah.
I don't love this, but it's fine. I'm not going to question it that much because it's not the focal point of the movie. I don't care that much. But then it got to the end, I'm like, these guys are geniuses.
Yeah.
Because a flawless Nick Fury through this movie, this would have been a really weird turn.
Right.
But a really weird Nick Fury through this whole movie now makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And then I immediately went, oh crap, the Skrull invasion thing is gonna happen. Like at first, because I was like, wow, we are gonna get bad guy Skrulls. But then it developed into this whole like part, and I'm like, man, what the heck is going on with this?
They
this
double,
is crazy.
triple swerved you
they
again.
Did. They triple swerved me. Like my brain was all over the place with that whole thing.
Yeah. You're like, secret invasion. Oh no, it's not. It's
yeah.
just that thing
no,
again.
it's just this thing. It's just they're still friends with Nick Fury.
Right.
Okay. All right. Cool. So this kind of plays into some of the Easter egg stuff that I started reading, because I was trying to look into that to see if I could figure out what this is all going to be about. But a lot of the thought right now is that this is a sign that S.H.I.E.L.D. is evolving into S.W.O.R.D., which in the comics was like the bigger organization that was meant to protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats.
Yeah. But S.H.I.E.L.D.'s barely S.H.I.E.L.D. in this universe.
Well,
right
but
now.
now that we've gotten to the point where we're at in a post-Thanos world, maybe this is Fury working with the Skrulls and Captain Marvel and any other extraterrestrial friend he has to start putting S.W.O.R.D. together.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got going on here. Apparently it was also, and this is something I didn't really know because I didn't really pay a lot of attention to Fury in the comics outside of a lot of the Ultimate Avengers stuff I was reading. But it was pretty common apparently in the comics for Fury to use decoys in his place.
Yeah.
Like fake Furies.
Well,
so like, and that he wouldn't actually be there for this. So that was supposed to be a big call.
a lot of live model decoys,
life model decoys.
Right.
Yep. So
Didn't he live on like Pluto for a long time and just fight anything that tried to come into the solar system?
Oh, I don't.
Wasn't that?
That's awesome.
Because like
I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know.
I mean, it wasn't a comic I've read, but it was something I remember seeing part of, because he was like the man on the wall or something, and then because Bucky became the man on the wall for a little while, and just like they lived on Pluto or something, and they would fight anything that tried to come into space.
That's awesome.
Or into the
That's
solar
awesome.
system. Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. That was supposed to be a big nod to that sort of thing, like him.
And just nothing ever learned to fly on the opposite orbit as
Yeah,
Pluto.
I don't know, man.
It's nothing over there, bro. It's just a wall. Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting to see where all that goes going forward. I think that was a neat way to kind of go, hey guys, you better stick around for Phase 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like we've kind of talked about how it feels like things are going to get more cosmic. And I think now that we've seen some of the announcements going forward, we know some things are going to get a little more cosmic. And so that's kind of neat to see that Fury's kind of stationed himself up there in space, surrounding himself by Skrulls and other allies, basically. Because now, we're in a post-Thanos world now.
Right.
We've got to be prepared for things like that.
Yeah.
Because we know that there's other celestial beings, bigger threats and stuff like that. Or we know that. They don't know that yet.
Right.
But probably that we're going to learn that. So that's pretty cool stuff. I thought that was fun. So with these, there's a couple other like fun little things that I haven't noticed yet that now I really want to go back and see. Apparently, during the scene where Peter's swinging through New York with MJ, in that little scene right there, there is a large billboard that's pretty prominent that's referenced. And the billboard's an ad for Manhattan construction, and the board says 1 with an arrow pointing to a 2, and then an arrow pointing to a 3, and then an arrow pointing to a question mark.
Nice.
And it says, "We can't wait to show you what comes next." And there's like a big circle around like where the 4 should be.
Nice.
That's amazing. like that's pretty awesome because that's blatant. Like what they're doing there.
That's super coded. Man.
Yeah,
That's
right.
pretty,
Right. Yeah.
But not like that's a lot of like you got to put a lot of thought into how to code something that deep but still make it that obvious. Like that's
yeah. They're having a lot of fun teasing the Fantastic Four stuff because they even teased it at Comic-Con. I don't know if you saw
that could be Phase 4.
That could be Phase 4. It could be Phase 4, or it could be a tease for the Fantastic Four, the Baxter Building, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of it's fun stuff. That's fun stuff.
One of the things I noticed the second time I watched it was when they're in Venice, you see several of Mysterio's guys in the background.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I want to go back and look for that now.
I looked for that the second time too, and I caught more of that because you had told me about it.
That is real cool.
Yep.
That is real cool. In the background of the charity event in the beginning, May's charity event, there's a wrestling poster hanging on the wall promoting a match between Crusher Creel and Bonesaw McGraw.
Yeah.
I think I did see that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
And
Too
Crusher
soon.
Creel, that's
was
Absorbing Man.
Was Bonesaw ready?
Bonesaw is ready.
Crusher Creel, but we've had Absorbing.
Yeah, we've
He
got
was
an
in
Absorbing Man
Agents
and
of
Agents of
S.H.I.E.L.D.
S.H.I.E.L.D.
So it could be the
He's
same
a wrestler
guy, right?
now.
I guess he's a wrestler now.
That's awesome.
But, yeah.
Actually, I'm pretty sure he's super dead, didn't he?
Did they kill him off?
Didn't
I
they
can't
kill him
remember.
off?
But they totally used
like-
Absorbing Man in season 1, right? Wasn't that-
Season 1. Well, he came back. He was in season.
Yeah. At one point, I thought he was
5.
dead, and he showed back up.
Yeah.
And so I figured I just remembered it wrong, but
Yeah.
I can't remember what he
Now
did
he's a
there.
wrestler fighting Bonesaw.
Oh, I hope so.
Bonesaw is ready.
He is a good character.
Yeah. And then like some of
Can he
these
not
other
run off
fun-
the ropes? Would he get stuck in the ropes every time? Oh.
Just like absorbs the ropes.
Every time he went to hit off the ropes.
There's some real fun. Like they do this sort of thing all the time, but apparently in like all the scenes where they showed the elementals, like the license plates on any of the cars, specifically in the scenes, are referencing certain comic books.
Yeah.
Which is really neat. Like for example, in the opening scene with like the sand elemental. There's a license plate that says 463 on Maria Hill's car, which is referencing Amazing Spider-Man number 4, published in 1963, first appearance of Sandman.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's crazy, right?
There's something on one of the boats, I think.
I
in
just-
Venice
I just-
or something in there.
Yeah, they do
don't
it
have
for
time for
everyone.
that, man.
Yeah. A license plate in Prague is ASM 28965, which is 1965's Amazing Spider-Man number 28, first appearance of Molten Man. They basically do it for each of these. There's one for Hydro Man, TASM 143, referencing the Amazing Spider-Man number 143, first battle with Cyclone. Like, they did it for every one of the elementals. They referenced the comic book.
So there's got to be like a division for
Isn't that
Like
crazy?
Kevin Feige didn't read all those comics, right? Like he just hired some nerds and was like, "Hey, I need you guys just to stick Easter eggs in that only you would ever find." We're on it, Mr. Feige.
Peter Parker's birthday on his passport is August 10th, and August 10th is when Amazing Fantasy number 15 came out in 1962, first appearance of Spider-Man. So, like, yeah, they just did that for, like, all of this
That's
stuff. That's neat.
Yeah,
I
that's
never
fun.
catch that stuff. That's
Oh.
all the kind of thing I read on these and go,
Yeah.
that's neat. But, like, I could never keep up with stuff like that. That's crazy. But, yeah, man, I don't know. I love looking at the little Easter eggs and stuff. That's
For
fun.
sure.
That's fun. All right. Well, I think that wraps things
that's
up,
it.
right? We just
Yep.
spent 2 hours.
Let's
talking
say, did
about
we go
Spider-Man.
longer than the movie again?
Pretty much.
think
We're
we
almost
did.
there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
2 hours. 2 hours on this movie. So, very cool stuff. Well, what's next for Marvel? Like I know we just got a bunch of announcements at Comic-Con, and we're going to talk about that in a different
Next up
podcast.
is Black Widow.
Black Widow. That's amazing.
We'll see.
We'll see how it goes. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, if you're new to the show, make sure you subscribe to us or follow us however you get your podcasts. We're available on YouTube if you like videos. Just do a search for the Geek Easy Podcast and hit that subscribe button. If you want to do the audio format, we're on pretty much all of your podcasting platforms like Spotify, Google Play. I don't know if iTunes is still called iTunes, but there's like an Apple podcast app or something. So we'll be on that feed. It's the same iTunes feed still. So anywhere you want to download us, you should be able to follow us there. And if you want to rate us and review us, we would appreciate that as well. Any final thoughts? Any final words? Anything you want to say to everybody before we go?
I liked it.
All right. Fair enough. All right, guys. Until next time, thanks for watching and listening.
The Geek Easy Podcast is a production of PixelDan.com. Musical tracks used in the intro and outro are used with full permission of the respective owners or creators. Intro and outro narrations are provided by me, Brian T. Stevenson. PixelDan.com's The Geek Easy Podcast is provided for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are those solely of the hosts or guests and do not necessarily represent those of PixelDan.com or any other party. Be sure to join us next time for another installment of the Geek Easy Podcast.